Indika is a narrative-driven, single-player, third-person game with puzzles, platforming elements, and a very slick cinematic presentation. This game was right up my alley because I'm a pretty avid movie watcher, and the developer says that this game is inspired by art house cinema from the likes of Yorgos Lanthimos, Ari Aster, and Darren Aronofsky, so that sounds like something that I would be into. Only difference is that it's a video game. And in this game, you play as a nun named Indika in 19th century Russia who struggles with her faith and her peers and regularly battles with a very manipulative inner demon. The game starts off with Indika. You find out that she's generally disliked among her cloister, and she's promptly tasked to deliver a letter to another monastery. And then the story quickly gets swept up into a different direction as she meets a local prison escapee, and for all intents and purposes is forced to help him on his journey. So I thought it was a pretty interesting scenario and a very cool setup. So through their dialogue and the different flashbacks and stuff, you get to experience their issues with faith, loyalty, and trust over the rest of the game. I don't want to give away too much because the story and the presentation is really the highlight of this game. This game might sound like a horror game on the surface as well, but it never really delves into horror specifically, but it definitely aims to make you uneasy. And there was a few moments in the game that really made me go, holy crap, and even gave me chills, but that's not the point of this game. It's more about the narrative themes that it's covering. With all that said, it's very much a cinematic or even a walking simulator type adventure game that's very beautifully presented, but not a very deep experience gameplay wise by any means. The closest types of games to this off the top of my head are other indie adventure games like Hellblade or Plague Tale, but this is even more simple and passive in its gameplay elements than those examples. There are a couple very simple platforming puzzles and challenges throughout the game, as well as some more linear chase sequences, but none of them are particularly difficult as far as games go. Generally, the puzzles come down to basic platforming using various levers and mechanical systems to move platforms and obstacles, and occasionally there's also supernatural forces at play in certain challenges. On the upside, each set piece and puzzle is quite unique from each other despite their simplicity, so you won't feel like you're doing the same challenge over and over. They often present a new mechanic and environment for each challenge with very little in terms of mechanic or even asset recycling, as far as I could tell throughout the 2 to 3 hour experience. One of the other notable gameplay elements in this adventure are the points that you see in the top left of all the gameplay so far. When you complete tasks, find collectibles, or even pray, yes, there's a button to pray in this game, you collect these points, which is a very gamer-centric and cynical way of viewing Indika's faith, which in many ways is the point of this game. While I can see a lot of players just turning off the UI outright to hide these points, I thought they were pretty cheeky and funny because of their thematic implications in the story. And not to give any spoilers, but they do have a lot of thematic impact towards the end of the game. Now, between certain chapters, there are also 2D platforming sections that reveal flashbacks about Indika's life and origins, which are a bit jarring compared to the presentation of the rest of the game, but they tell a simple story well enough. And the pixel art was also really strong in its own regard. These sections are also not super difficult gameplay-wise, even though I died a lot. I'm just really bad at 2D games. I do wish there was a stronger connection or through line between the 3D and 2D levels of this game than just the point indicators. The game really just hard cuts between the two, and I feel like they could have done more to ease this transition or even have the pixelated elements seep into the 3D world on occasion or something. I just really think there's more potential that could have been used to blend those two aspects of this game's presentation. Feels too much like two different games other than the connective storyline. As I've said a couple times already, and as you can see, the graphics in this game are really spectacular. It runs off of Unreal Engine 4, I believe, and it really showcases the power and capabilities of this engine. In many cutscenes, the faces and details are as good as many AAA games nowadays, and the atmosphere throughout the game is really hauntingly isolated and spooky. Even the level design and blocking felt really strong. I was never lost or feeling artificially funneled through the world, even though it's a very linear game. And there really was enough sense of exploration, I felt, to look around for different collectibles and really just enjoy the details and scenery of this surreal Russian winter. While the game does look good, there was a little bit of performance issues. I did see occasional pop-in particular when the game cuts between different camera angles and cutscenes, as well as some slowdown in some specific more open-ended areas. But otherwise the game ran at a really nice 60 FPS. I believe it was in 4K on PS5, though I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of dynamic resolution built into the engine of this game. All the animation work, the motion capture, Even the voice acting was really great, and the game had some really cool cinematography, as you may have seen from some of the earlier trailers. They're really not shy to have close-ups with these characters, and the graphics and details just hold up really well, even when they're putting a fisheye lens right up to those characters. The game does have distinct chapters and levels, and they don't feel super repetitive again, which I thought was a great choice for this game. I love the exaggerated industrial levels in particular. There's a massive canning factory that's a huge part of the game, and it's almost like Portal 2-esque in its ridiculous scale and atmosphere, and the environmental design really reminds me of an industrial Russian version of like The Oldest House from Control, or as I said, like Portal 2's seemingly bottomless aperture laboratories. This game really is the strongest in its presentation. And the audio design is also really great, but it's also where I had the most issues in my playthrough.
Not true!
I did play this game on a soundbar, and I didn't see much in the options for audio output settings, so maybe that didn't help my situation, and it would be all fine with headphones. And I also played this pre-release, so maybe they've patched it already, who knows. But I still think there were some problems in the audio department overall. Just take a look at my game capture timeline of the entire game, and you can see how quiet and loud some chapters are compared to one another. And then even within certain conversations, Indika and other characters' volume levels would just be so different for no apparent reason.
Why are you rushing so much?
Sorry. We're doing no more than 5 verses an hour, though.
Whoa. How do you understand it, huh?
So it was just a little bit jarring. And then some cutscenes, the audio would just be out of sync. Like the audio would be slightly delayed.
Hey. Are you wounded?
And then even pausing wouldn't really fix it, so I'm not too sure what's up with that. But as far as what's there, the environments are very isolating and cold, and the detailed Foley and sound effects and the voice work was really great, I thought. So it was just a shame that I had so many issues in my playthrough. I was able to finish this game in about 2.5 hours, and then I played another 30 to 40 minutes to wrap up the remaining trophies. And thanks to Oddmeter sending me a review code, I was able to snag one of the earliest platinums in this game in the world, which was a fun first for me. Anyways, my overall thoughts are that this game was great, and if you're really into cinematic games, third-person adventure games, or even art house movies, you'll probably dig Indika. But if you're more into action games, this might not jive with you, as it is mostly a walking sim with not a lot of innovative puzzles. I think I've said a couple of times now, the story and the presentation is the real highlight here. And the game is not too long. I think that's a good thing. Some people might not, but I would definitely recommend this game if you're into cinematic games with challenging and interesting storylines. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And let me know down below what you thought of this game. I'd love to hear your thoughts.